Welcome to the official Hacks podcast from HBO Max and Sane Boat Studios. I'm Lucia Aniello, co-showrunner and co-creator of Hacks. Joining me are the other fab UW Hacks showrunners, creators, and the always yassified Jen Statsky and Paul W. Downs.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys? Thank you so much, Lucia, for saying that.
That you're always yassified?
Yep.
Yep.
We are back to talk about episode 4 of season 5, which is entitled Who's Making Dinner? It was written by Samantha Riley and directed by Lucia Aniello. The episode starts with Deborah trying out new material for her team. It doesn't go so well.
Let's get to the persecution pyramid.
Her material is a little bit, shall we say, cerebral. It's a little bit historical.
It's a little heady.
It's a little not that funny.
And Ava has a meeting about her mall girl script, which kind of goes good and kind of doesn't go good.
It's so nuanced. It's so specific. Oh, it's so original. So obviously we can never make it. Oh, yeah.
And Deborah's team attends the 50th anniversary exhibit for Who's Making Dinner at the Paley Fest, where even more things don't go as planned.
You're actually going to arrest me?
Yep. I'm sorry, she wasn't even funny tonight. That was barely even comedy.
The day's highs and lows give both Deborah and Ava clarity on what direction to take with their work.
Yes.
That's true. This is really about work. It's about honoring the work Deborah's done 50 years ago with a sitcom, which, as Jimmy says to Randy, who doesn't know, Deborah and her husband starred in the sitcom before their infamous divorce. And it's the way that she first became famous, gained some notoriety. In our history of the show, she and her husband did a Nichols and May style live show, and then they had the opportunity to make it into a show. They developed this show, Who's Making Dinner, which was really about this new couple and about the woman maybe being the breadwinner and how the gender dynamics would be flipped. Progressive for its time.
But behind the scenes, a little less progressive because Frank was the philanderer and got the lion's share of the credit for it.
That's right. His name was on the pilot script, which meant he alone was the creator, something that Deborah feels he knew and was doing intentionally to rob her of some credit.
Mm-hmm. He wins an Emmy. He gets a lot of credit. Things that we knew, but our viewers did not know until this episode, getting a little bit of a peek into what Deborah and Frank's history was.
This is the first time we've employed flashbacks in the series. Maybe an interesting thing for our listeners is that the actor, George Caraman, who plays young Frank, is actually in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
He's the person that in the shooting of Deborah's late night pilot, the camera does cut to. We see a young Kathy and a young Frank, who Deborah doesn't realize are having an affair, as well as a young DJ. But George came back to reprise his role.
Hi, George.
Hello,
Hi,
George.
George.
He's someone that we met on the improv comedy scene in New York doing
Long time ago.
Upright Citizens Brigade classes.
Funny guy.
Really funny guy. It felt really nice, I think, to give Deborah this story about Who's Making Dinner and sort of give her closure about the trauma that she experienced, which sort of changed the trajectory of her life and her career.
Yes.
Put her on a blacklist after he smeared her in the press, and also is the reason she turned to stand-up, doing things on her own, getting up on stage alone.
Because she couldn't disappoint herself.
That's right.
So the flashbacks, we wanted to do them because we kind of felt like we do so much mythologizing on the show. This is what it was like. This is what they were like. This is what happened, especially because it is like her core trauma. But we also wanted to like show the audience what it felt like to be in this position. So that's why when you first see Frank in the flashback, it's on this iconic to them couch and they're clearly in love and he's like complimenting her jokes and being sweet. And you're like, oh, I can see how this was so special. Can you imagine if that was your life? You're like 24 years old or something, and you're sitting on the couch with your husband and you're joking. I mean, I guess I can kind of relate.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah, you're saying, can I imagine?
Great.
I'm like, you can imagine.
I mean, when we were 24, we didn't have a sitcom.
I was waiting tables.
Yeah, and we were making YouTube videos. But
Yeah.
that was the dream.
Yes. But then you can see that in the next flashback, he's like kind of flirting with like a PA and you could kind of see how he was still just looking for affection and love and attention, presumably because Deborah was getting more attention because she was, as he says later, the funny one. And then lastly, you see him winning an Emmy and giving a cursory thank you to Deborah. Thank you. I love you. And thanks to my team at William Morris. Like he
does
says,
move on quickly.
Yeah. And you know, I think she feels like not only was she denied the credit she deserved, but he came to really resent her. And so she's kind of held on to that anger and that rage and still isn't really quite over it. And that is, of course, doubled with what's happening with her right now and feeling like she's being erased and not giving the credit she deserves by Bob Lipka, who's taking down all her work. So she's really kind of going through it and having these mirrored experiences with these men in her life that have at times been romantic turn very sour.
Yeah. What you don't work through finds you.
Oh, is that a phrase?
It's a phrase I just made up.
I love
What you
that.
don't work through finds you. I love that.
Okay. Well,
It's
great.
so true. And, I think this trauma that Deborah experienced is part of the reason that she is so guarded and is so withholding sometimes of intimacy with people. Why I think also it's so loaded when she meets Ava and finds someone that she wants to collaborate with again.
Yes.
It is a very tricky thing when it's something that she, I think, craves, a partnership like that, a creative partnership, a pairing. And yet she knows it can be really devastating if it ends.
And it's why their relationship over the course of 5 seasons has been so up and down, because it is something that she has been constantly working through and or not working through, really trying to, through this partnership with Ava.
And it finds her because
And
she
it
didn't work
finds
through it.
But I would say that the series is her working through it.
Of
You know?
course.
Absolutely.
That's what we're exploring.
Yeah.
And in this episode in particular, we're exploring it in terms of how it's affecting her current work, which is something that, the show is really primarily about, is about doing the work and where you are in your life and how it affects your work and how your work then also affects your life and the core relationships that you can have, which is, of course, autobiographical in so many ways to us. But it really is, this nexus of like what motivates Deborah, what has motivated her, and what should motivate her. That's what we're exploring in this episode you just saw.
I do want to say there is some good news in this episode. There is some fun because Ava gets to sit with an exec who loved her script. She
Caitlin
loved her Mall Girl
Riley.
script. We need to talk about Caitlin Riley, who was in season 2. She plays the exec who helped purchase My Bad. And in a very funny way, in the finale of season 2, says, "Hi, lady," which always tickles me.
She's also very funny on social media. Go
girl who was
follow
going to
her.
be okay.
Yeah, she is girl who's going to be okay.
She is really special.
She's so funny. Yeah, there's a lot of things in season 2 that kind of come to fruition in this episode, which is when they're at the mall, we see Ava get the idea for the Mall Girl script, which in true life takes her a long time to write.
Which is true to life. Sorry, this is all, we're trying to get very grounded.
It also feels very real, the thing of, well, I love this, but yet we're not going to make this.
Yeah.
So what else?
Haven't you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of a blind script deal is very interesting.
The hope would be you would use the deal for an idea you've had for a while.
That you've been really wanting to do.
And let's be honest, Ava has been really dedicated to helping Deborah with her work,
That's
whether
right.
it's revitalizing her Vegas residency or writing the My Bad special. All of that stuff, honestly, has taken up a lot of time. So it's not like she's at the ready with a bunch of ideas.
No,
she even
but-
says, could Mall Girl be a series?
And
The answer's
to your
no.
point, Deborah has become her muse completely.
Oh, yes.
Which, of course, would only make sense for why when she sees who's making dinner, she goes, well, there's my muse. And there's yet again my idea. There's the origin of my next idea.
But that, I do think, is what happens oftentimes. You see something and then you're like, oh, actually that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not when she's walking around trying to grind and think of an
grind
idea.
on ideas. Yeah, that's the worst.
That is bad.
That's hard.
She's sort of allowing it to come to her. She's being a little bit more passive. She's actually watching something. She's an audience member.
Yes.
And then it comes to her.
Right.
And thank goodness she has such a brilliant manager,
Yeah.
Jimmy Lucia Jr., who says that's actually a great idea.
Yes.
If you can do a reboot that's about something, it might be really marketable,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't what it's all about. But quite frankly, it is. It's important for an idea not only to be good, but to translate to an executive who can buy it or to their bosses.
And
I
if you
guess.
have something commercial that eases it in to an audience, and then you can make it about something like Jimmy says.
Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
That's right. That's
Though
right.
I wouldn't say
I just
that
came up with
this idea of Hacks would necessarily be like, I don't think we were like, that's a mass hit.
Definitely not.
But it was something we wanted to watch. It was,
That's
and
the
I think
thing.
that is something that for those of you who are listening and are writers, Barbara, I know you're a writer-director. I do think that you're wanting to watch it. It's like anything,
Yes.
It's like anything where it's like you got to find the thing that you're most passionate about.
Passion first.
Passion first.
Passion
Passion first. Caitlin Riley isn't wrong.
Yeah.
Not too political, not too poor, hard, funny,
Okay.
but passion first.
So while Deborah is exploring her past and her past trauma and finding that what you don't work through finds you,
Mm-hmm.
and Ava is trying to figure out an idea for this blind script deal, our dear friend Jimmy Lusac Jr. is having an interesting complicated work experience. Now, Beth, played by the brilliant Anna Konkle, is someone we have long been huge fans of. Pen 15, one of our favorite shows. High art, brilliant comedy, one of the greatest comedies of all time, truly.
Absolutely.
Anna and Maya Erskine are so funny in that show. It is such a specific, nuanced, brilliant show. It is almost anthropological, their transformation. I always buy them as tweens.
Yes.
It is not as if they're adults. It is so bizarre. In fact, Meg Stalter, who has a lot of scene work with Anna in this episode, loves Pen 15 as well, but at first didn't even, because she wasn't in braces, at first didn't even, she was like, oh my God, of course.
Right.
You know what I mean? It took her a
Right.
second because even though obviously Anna looks like Anna, she does transform into
absolutely.
Yeah.
into a girl.
Also, speaking of an episode where we're talking about ideas and how the industry receives ideas and pitching them, it is another show that, of course, and I think they've spoken of this, not the easiest sell in the world, that we would be playing middle school tweens and everyone else would be of the correct age. And that is something that, like, thank God someone was like, yes, let's do this. Because it is, when I watched that show, I was like, I am so happy this exists. I can't believe it exists, and I am so delighted. But Jimmy finds himself in a really complicated situation that I think
We've all
makes
been in.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to get home and rip off this microthong. If it's still there, my fat ass is eating it up.
Okay, Beth, I think I need to clear the air, all right? I've clearly misled you, and we need to keep things professional because I'm just not in a place for a relationship right now.
I'm married, so.
I think it really makes sense for Jimmy.
It does, because he does the right thing always to the detriment of himself.
Yeah, he probably could have like not said anything and coasted along, and whether that, you know, I think he could have just moved through the event. But no, he really wanted to make clear. But again, if someone says to you, I need to rip off this microthong, if it's still there, my fat ass is eating it up. I think you're like, well, all right, this is feeling overtly sexual, and I should probably just say that I don't think being in a romantic relationship is healthy. I don't think it's something I can do right now.
Why do you think that Jimmy doesn't want to be in that relationship? Because
I think mostly
their
because she's
chemistry's
married.
there.
I think she's married.
Oh, right. I forgot.
And I think, I think the fact that she's I think if she weren't married, he might be like, I think he's not cruised a lot, as he says. And
That
so
is
I think he'd be
so funny.
flattered.
He says cruise.
And I bet you he would be open to it as soon as the event was over.
Sure.
I don't think he would engage in
They wouldn't hook up
overt
in
flirtation.
the
I don't
the
think they
event.
would be.
Yeah. But it's the fact that she's married and his knees are too big for it to
His
be a
knees. I
third.
thought you said his knees. I was like, well, his knees. My knees are perfectly proportioned to my body, but yes, his knees are too big. He doesn't want to be a third. He doesn't want to be a side.
But
No.
also, I would say, in defense of my friend Jimmy, I do think he's cruised a lot more than he even realizes. He's just such a nice guy that he thinks it's kind of just a normal kindness that people are exchanging.
I do think sometimes he has self-esteem issues, and so
Yeah.
he doesn't see it as flirting.
Yeah.
Kayla's like, that person was flirting, and Jimmy's like, oh,
Yeah.
huh. You know what I mean?
That's
not
why
his
they're
first
such
thought.
a wonderful duo, Kayla and Jimmy, because Kayla really is able to, I think, by process of osmosis, give a little bit more self-esteem.
Absolutely. She is
to
the most
Jimmy.
self-assured person
Yes.
Jimmy's probably ever encountered, and they
Yeah.
are such a good yin-yang because of that. And I will say, she's somebody who, maybe to her detriment, thinks everyone is trying to fuck her all the time. I mean, she's like, she moves to the world being like, oh my God, everyone wants me bad.
Ugh, that'd be amazing.
Is that
Yeah.
Do you think low self-esteem that you're referring to is why Jimmy's single? Because like Jimmy's
Yes,
such
I
a
think
catch.
I do think that's part of it. I think he's also, like all of our characters, you know, the show is about work and the process, and I think he is really devoted to his work in a way. And I think, unfortunately, this is a little bit outside of his control. He has been in a scenario where he left Latitude, he went out on his own.
Yeah.
He and Kayla started this business. Deborah has been in various crises in
Sure.
that time, as
Yeah.
has Ava. I think like his work has been a little bit more demanding than he would hope it would
Yes.
normally be. So I
Right.
think it's like, as someone who is devoted to his work, it's really, there's not been a lot of room for it.
Yeah.
He's stressed. You know, there's like a lot, like he's got to keep it afloat. And
Yeah.
one of his clients has a non-compete, can't even work.
Totally.
And the other one is obsessed with her. And doesn't, isn't producing a lot.
Right.
But thank God she wrote the script.
And he's got, also, we've seen him, he now represents Esme from episode 1. So
yeah, I
he's
don't know
got,
that that's a big moneymaker for
He's
him.
got Renee O'Connor.
And of course,
Well,
still
that
Valerie
is good.
Bertinelli's non-cooking
of
appearances.
course,
Right.
yeah.
And the woman from
Vanna White.
Vanna White.
Vanna
Vanna
White.
White is doing a musical in in London, but it's not making any money for him.
Right. But he's waking up for London Zoom. So he's not getting a lot of sleep.
So tired, which is why he has to do therapy at night so late because that's the only time he can find. Obviously, he has issues. He has boundary issues with clients. As you can see, when Deborah calls, he immediately slams the laptop shut and ends his session.
I want Jimmy to love Jimmy more.
That's exactly it.
And that's exactly what Kayla has said to him.
Yeah.
She has said this very thing to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kayla really loves Jimmy. Really
I
cares.
wonder what percentage of our audience wants Jimmy and Kayla to get married.
I don't know.
Oh, well, we're going to send out a survey monkey to everyone listening. Do we have everyone's email address who's listening? I don't know if we do.
I don't think we've ever really wanted them to be together romantically, personally, right?
Meg does.
I mean, I know Meg does. I mean, us.
No, I don't think, although Cole Escola, who was a consultant on season 1, after they watched the first season, they texted me and said, Kayla and Jimmy get married. In the end, that's endgame.
They are married.
In so many ways. And the show is about our work relationships, our work wives, our work husbands, our work partners. And so in a way they are.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And they
the
do
show is
become
about
much better
redefining what partnership looks like and not putting romantic partnership perhaps on the pedestal above work partnership.
That's right. And it's interesting you use the word work because of course, what Deborah and Ava do together is work, but it's really about creation. And I just am trying to take away the capitalism from the word.
Of course. Well, definitely. Yeah,
Right.
it's about a life calling.
Yes. And the
Yes.
process.
Right.
But also Jimmy and Kayla's work relationship, which, yes, their work is also helping others do work.
Which I do think, especially for Jimmy, is a calling. I don't know if it is as much for Kayla, even though she's quite good at it.
And we'll get into it this season.
Although I think almost the entrepreneurial aspect of their company is a calling for Kayla. I think wanting to prove that she can support herself outside of her trust fund, maybe,
Yes.
and her dad is a big part of her calling.
Right.
But yeah, for Jimmy, I think helping artists make their work, it's almost as if he is an artist in that way. Yes, he's one degree removed, but I think he feels it's very much a calling.
And
for
it
him.
is.
Definitely.
Supporting artists that's producing.
Right.
And that is a incredible skill.
That's right.
We have great producers. Sometimes I think about the invisible work that they do on our show.
Of course.
Morgan Sackett,
Nate Young.
Nate Young. Our show looks and feels the way it does in large part because they help make our dreams a reality
Of course.
in a very literal way.
And it's also, and this gets into the weeds of it all, but it is interesting the way that getting the structures around the work is so important. Like, hey, you have this much money. What's more important, this or this? And we have to sometimes make those difficult decisions, but it is to make the things that end up on screen the best as possible. So that is such an interesting part of producing and show running, being like, how do you allot these resources to the show to make it as best as possible? And sometimes we end up shooting stuff that we cut, and that's really devastating for us because
We spent the money.
we spent the money. Yes, it's really hard because it's like, oh, that could have gone towards X, Y, or Z thing, or now we could have had a better song for this if we could have afforded or whatever.
Right.
Whatever. It's interesting part of
Yes.
the process that isn't really something you would ever think about when you're just watching a show, but obviously we think about it constantly.
I bet if you're a producer, you think about it, though.
Of course.
And you are a producer.
Well, we are all
And that is
producers.
something we do think about a lot, actually. We wear that hat every day
Yes.
and think about, whether we should get another take or move on because of, time is money.
But I do sometimes, it does sometimes take me out of shows or movies because, I'll think
What
about
do you mean?
the
being a producer.
I'm like,
As a
man,
producer.
that location, how'd they get that?
Yeah.
Totally.
Or if it's block shooting is something we do a lot, which is if we're going to one location, we'll probably shoot all of the scenes for the season in that location in one day. So you might see a location for Schaefer and Lusac, and it's over the course of the season, but maybe we shot there for 3 days?
Yeah,
max?
3 days.
We strive to make the show look and feel cinematic and be beautiful because we like watching that stuff, and also we feel comedy can be that. But it is a credit also to, especially Morgan, who's been with us in season 1. Season 1, we shot during the pandemic, and a large part of our budget went to testing and protective gear and sort of the mobile laboratory. A lot of money went to that. And so if it weren't, I think, for his creative producing to help figure out how to stretch the dollar and do things like block shoot so that we would save money, I think that season looks as beautiful as any season, but it was made for much less because of the amount of money that had to be dedicated to COVID.
Right.
We donated to the disease.
We're
we
huge
did have
fans.
to spend.
We were some of the rare supporters.
Well, actually, in a way, if I may.
Okay.
Here we
Well,
go.
of course, we do not like COVID, but
No. Oh,
we were
gosh. We're going to come out on
originally-
the record and say we don't like COVID.
Okay, but we were originally supposed to shoot a pilot for Hacks.
Oh, that's
but
true.
because of COVID, we couldn't shoot it because this was in the spring, March or April.
Pre-vaccine.
Yes.
Oh,
And so-
actually, yeah. It was right after we shut down. We shut down in
Yeah.
March, right? Yeah. it
we
was
were still
then.
casting people we were auditioning Avas in February when the world shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, okay, well, we can't shoot the pilot. So we're going to go and just have you write the whole season. We're going to greenlight the season. And so that season, we were able to go and then shoot the whole season, block shoot the whole season, including the
Right.
first episode.
Right, because everything had been written.
Exactly.
Right, so that did really help. As we continued to do every season, we wrote
Yes.
the majority of the season before we even prepped, and then we would be writing one or two. Usually,
Still
we wrote the
finishing
finale during production.
Yes.
Yes.
But for the most part, we were able to be as efficient as possible because we could see the entire season mapped out.
Yes. And it helps keep the money on the screen if you're able to do that.
Right.
We also edit on the weekends while we're shooting for many reasons. But one of the reasons that is helpful is if you're editing an episode and you're like, oh, it needs this line or this moment or this little scene, we can oftentimes seamlessly incorporate that into production as we go.
Right, we can fold that into what is coming up as opposed to saying, oh, we're editing now that everything is wrapped and our crew has moved on to other projects and oops, we need to pick up that line to clarify. you know?
Would we like to talk about a scene from this very episode that was born of that?
No. No, wait.
Go, Jen.
Well, that very thing you're talking about did happen with this episode, which is the scene in Deborah's office when they are scanning the photos and Deborah is kind of reestablishing what this event is going to be and kind of reestablishing her history with Frank.
What are you doing?
What did you call it?
We're yassifying Deborah.
And we're de-yassifying Frank.
That was not originally in the shooting script, and only when we were in the edit on the weekend were we like, we think we need this scene.
To re-clarify how this happened. Because we did talk about it in the end of season 4.
That's
Was it
right.
In
Yes.
the finale
in 410,
episode?
In
Yes.
410, it's revealed that Frank put his name on the first script, which made him the creator.
Yeah.
And sort of robbed Deborah of some credit. We also mentioned in that episode that Deborah didn't have the rights to the show for that
Yes.
reason. So while people who are very closely watching might have remembered that, we thought it's probably better to set the table,
Yeah.
not only for what the event is, but also to sort of give a little bit of a reestablishing of that story.
And how Deborah felt about it. Like the line, he never wanted me to get any credit.
Right. I do think it makes the moment when she finally hears him say Deborah was the funny one much more impactful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we know this has been sort of her cross to bear and that she's been very slighted by it.
Yes.
And she has. It's not just in her mind. But hearing him say that is both, I think, touching and moving to her, but also frustrating because she doesn't love how affected she is by it. She is very affected by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also say Kathy won't be there.
Oh, yes. We also established that Kathy won't be there because while we may see her this season, we didn't want the audience to be waiting and looking for her. We
Yeah.
wanted to sort of check that box
Yeah.
and have people be in for the ride without wondering if she was going to be there, which I think is very believable. I don't know that Kathy, knowing that Deborah's going to be there, is going to go because the last time they saw each other, of course, it was revealed that Deborah had exhumed their parents and moved them to Las Vegas.
I wouldn't be in the
Oops.
mood to hang.
No, she's not happy. She's pissed.
No.
We should talk a bit about Samantha Riley, who wrote the script and is another person that you knew.
Yes, I met her at Aquafina is Nora from Queens.
Yes.
And I love her. She's so cool, great. Went to Brown, cool chick. She's running, doesn't remember her Instagram login. I mean, just one of the coolest people around.
Sam, like all of our writers, which I love, so one of one,
Oh, I
unique.
know.
No one else like her in the world.
No.
She's making her own kombucha.
Yep.
She's a world-class runner.
Yep. She got a 6-pack.
You know, Sam had been with us since season 1. This is the last episode she wrote for
That's right.
Hacks.
What are you in for?
Stand-up comedy.
Deborah goes to jail. It is at its heart, this episode, a bit Sullivan's Travels, which I don't need to do the recap of what that movie is for you. You can look it up. But
We'll play it right now. Imagine I don't think we
play
have
the
the rights,
movie.
but imagine we
Deborah-
play the movie.
I think Deborah, in a dire situation, remembers the power of laughter and how important that is. And that helps her realize that she's been so overtaken by fear, rage, and anger that she forgot what really matters, which is to make people laugh is what they'll remember and what they need. And so she gets back to basics in terms of what her new special is going to be that she does at MSG.
I mean, I think in a way she's able to make it not just about her. Of course, making people laugh will make them remember her, which is sort of her quest this season, is to cement her legacy. But also, she, I think, was given the gift in that group holding cell of remembering that it's not just about her. It's also about the service she provides to people that come,
Right.
giving people the laugh, letting them have fun. And that's just as important as whatever record she breaks or legacy she makes. And so she does really, I think, have an awakening. And sometimes you got to be arrested to wake up.
Yeah.
You got to be rehabilitated. She's being rehabilitated from doing Joan of Arc jokes. She's like, no, I got to do other stuff too.
And quick shout out, Amber Nelson, who had a DUI in the jail cell, was with us actually when we came up with the show for Hacks, because we went on a road trip to Portland, Maine to shoot part of his Netflix character special. And she was in it. So that's a little full circle for us personally.
She was in it. She played a woman who actually had sort of a flirtation with Jasper Cooch.
Please go watch Jasper Cooch.
Jasper Cooch, Big Trucks. But yes, we were shooting that. I asked Jen and Lucia to come with me to make me funnier and to punch me up, and they did. And on that road trip in Jen's dad's car,
we were at a monster truck rally, and you'll see this when you go look it up, but they just gave Paul the mic and let him have full control over this monster truck rally. And so we were just pitching things for him to say, and he was improvising. But you could have, I always think about that, you could have been like, there's a bomb, there's a bomb. You could have said anything. You could have gone crazy.
Yeah, it was really a fun trip. And Amber is so funny. She's a great actress and a great stand-up.
Yes.
She plays Bethany in this episode, whose urine is concerning. It's alarming to Deborah, the color of her pee.
Yes.
It's been a real pleasure sharing an open toilet with you ladies. But Bethany, I'm a little concerned about the color of your pee.
I know.
So my favorite moment of this episode is Deborah bombing on stage.
Yes.
I was told not to speak tonight, but at least Joan got to scream when she was burned at the stake. Lucky bitch.
Deborah's crash out on stage is so funny to me.
Yeah.
It was scripted to be as it, was written, but it was so much funnier to see her, like, she looks like a rat in water.
Squirming,
She's
when
like
she's
paddling
swimming.
and trying to get to safety. It's so funny to me to watch Deborah bomb in that way.
Yeah, whenever she's low status, Jean is
really
very,
funny.
very funny because she's such a high status character all the time.
It's so fun to see her play against type in that way. It's great.
What's your favorite moment?
My favorite moment is after Beth turns Jimmy down.
Yeah.
She's not going to help him out because of their experience.
Yes.
Kayla walks up, touches her hair and says, when you and Jimmy were dating, I thought we could be friends, but now I realize you're just another selfish blonde trying to break his heart. And then she turns and with no pretense and no affectation says, you're a bitch. She says you're a bitch in such a funny way and then turns and makes the funniest face. Meg is so funny. And it is one of my favorite performances from Megan Stalter as Kayla.
You're a
It's
bitch.
so funny.
You're a bitch.
You're a bitch.
We say that all the time now.
I can't even
Lovingly.
do it. Play the clip.
You know what? When you were dating Jimmy, I really thought we could be friends. But now I know you're just another selfish blonde, aren't you? You're a bitch.
Those are in my top for sure. I would say my favorite moment is in the pitch scene with Miss Jessica Duncan there's a lot of moments in that. I love when she screams. Just play it. Actually, I'm not going to do it well here. Play it.
Jimmy said that I would like your script. I didn't. I loved it!
Which is a little bit inspired by our son, who says that all the time.
I didn't like it.
I don't like it. I love it.
That, and then also when she says queer counts,
Yes.
and then Ava does her little hat tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also LGBTQI+. Yes, girl, I see you. And Hannah made the very funny choice to point to her loafers.
Yes. It is so
which
funny
is
that point.
So Kayla and Hannah are so funny in that scene together. There's so many moments in that were improvised by them on the day that I love.
Me too.
At the moment.
Yeah. They are really good.
What else you got?
Yeah, I was like, "Ah," with the biggest smile you've ever seen.
So funny.
But what else you got?
That was all that I was kind of doing at the moment.
And that's it for episode 4. Thank you so much for joining us again. This has been the official Hacks podcast with Lucia Aniello, Paul W. Downs, and me, Jen Statsky.
It's actually Lucia. That's Lucia's voice.
The Hacks podcast is produced by HBO Max in collaboration with Same Boat Studios. Our executive producers are Gabrielle Lewis and Barry Finkel. Our senior producer is Emmanuel Hapsis. This show is mixed by Hannes Brown, and our technical director is In-Sung Huang. Special thanks to Michael Gluckstadt, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, and Kenya Reyes from the HBO Max podcast team. You can watch all of Hacks on HBO Max. We'll be back next week to dig into episode 5 with director of the episode, Jeffrey Rosie Rosenberg.